Well, good afternoon and happy Valentine's Day. This is Nick Pleisch again from MindBodySoulFinancial.com. It's a beautiful, if not slightly chilly day down here in Old Town Alexandria. Maybe a little overcast. Who am I kidding? I'm just happy it's over 50 degrees. I'm down here on the dock near the chart house and the Blackwall Hitch. We got DC down there in the distance. On the Dirty Potomac. First and foremost, let me wish Jody a happy Valentine's Day. I love you. You're stronger every year. Me and the kids are happy to have you. And, lucky for me, Jody isn't huge on Valentine's Day either. Frankly, she hates the crowds. So we usually celebrate either right before or right after, and we're going skiing next week anyway. But anyway, I wanted to come back out today and provide a follow-up to our quick introduction yesterday. Somebody really smart, a few people actually, have told me to keep the YouTube videos to a few minutes at a time. Because apparently in 2018, human beings aren't able to focus any longer than it takes to pop a bag of popcorn in a microwave. Maybe we should call my kids' generation the microwave generation. You think that'll catch on? Anyway, today I'd like to talk about our why. Right. So yesterday, I gave a quick introduction. Small town kid from New Hampshire that didn't have a small town mindset. I couldn't stand cubicle life anymore and went independent. And my faith and my family provide all the motivation I need to persist through the ups and downs of building a business. And the combination of health and wealth is important to us, not one over the other, but both of them together. So why are these things important to us? Let me tell a few stories to answer those questions and give you a little bit of insight into our motivation here and what we're trying to do. Growing up, I didn't really have, we had what we needed. Myself and my siblings were loved. We had everything we needed. There were never fights over money, but there was always a tension surrounding it. We didn't have many luxuries, so I grew up thinking money was scarce, that there's a finite amount of it, and it just wasn't available to everybody. That affected my perspective on life for years, through college and into my career. That scarcity mindset was perpetuated by 9 years of military and government service because, shocking revelation here, government work isn't exactly a place that emphasizes abundance and the mindset of self-made success. Just do what you're told, right? That perspective on the world and on wealth is how most of us in this country grow up. We're 95% hardwired, just about, for how we will view the world by the time we're 18 years old. Sadly, what most of us get growing up is we don't talk about money, That's a private topic. We don't discuss it. We don't look for help with it. And God forbid, don't tell others what you make. You can tell them about your divorces, and you can tell them about your personal problems, and you can tell them about your medical issues, but not money. No. Nobody has any. Some people pretend that they do, and we don't like them because of it. And that's just how it is. Well, because of this, most people have given up on their dreams that they may have had as a kid by the time they're graduating college, and they're content to find someone willing to pay them some sort of a salary and to clock in and out for the next 40 years in hopes they can save just enough to get by in retirement. Well, needless to say, when I found out that doesn't have to be how I live my life, or it doesn't have to be how anybody lives their life, I was ecstatic. When I found out that I could pursue my passions and get paid to do so, I dove in. In the last 6 years, I've realized that for the most part, if you're strong enough, you can pursue your passions and make a living doing so. You can actually love life while you live it. We all have something to offer the world. We all have a story to tell and value to give to others. 2 Corinthians 9:6 says, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows abundantly will also reap abundantly. Financially and otherwise, I believe God put me here and us here to help others live more abundantly, financially, physically, etc. And that's one of my whys. That's one of my motivations. Too many people are just kind of take what's given to them and don't ask questions and don't seek something better, that they give up on what they've always wanted to do. So another why of mine that goes along with this health and wealth theme. Through college, I didn't have the best fitness habits, and a couple years into my Air Force career, my metabolism slows down as it slowed down, as is bound to happen to all of us, right? And I gained a bunch of weight. As a second lieutenant at 24 years old, I was approaching 200 pounds, and I'm not like 6'3", 200 pounds. I'm 5'9" if I fudge it a little bit. I could barely run the 1.5 miles for the Air Force PT test in 12 minutes. There's actually a picture of Jody and I at a wedding shower back in New Hampshire before we got married in 2004. She looks like a young, beautiful college girl that she was, and I looked like a fat 40-year-old man. So I've actually shared that picture with a few people over the years, and I don't know about public dissemination, but I'm gonna maybe lock that one up in the vault someday. But one of the most embarrassing photos of my life, needless to say. A couple years later, we got stationed out at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and I don't know, maybe it was the salt in the air or the seawater or whatever, but Jody decided to take up triathlon. It's a pretty active triathlon scene in California, so frankly, I'm not very surprised she did. But for her first season, she spent working out a couple hours a day sometimes, several hours a week, swimming, biking, and running, while I was sitting on the couch studying for an MBA and watching a lot of TV. I didn't have time to work out. Well, let me just tell you, that's a load of crap. Eventually, though, I went to see her race at the end of the season, and my competitive spirit took over when I watched that race. And I decided to try out this triathlon thing the following year. That and, well, my wife was making me look like a lazy bum, so I had to do something. Speaking about doing things that are hard and that we don't think we can do, I could barely swim across the pool once when I first started training for my first triathlon. It took most of the season to work myself up to being able to swim the 400 or 500 yards at a time you needed to do a sprint triathlon. I was relatively new to cycling too, and then running, well, I hated it at the time. But over the next couple of years, I just kept doing it. I just kept swimming, right? And I finished a handful of triathlons over that next few years, lost 50 pounds, even won one of the triathlons, stood in a small local race in Central California somewhere. But above all, I felt better than I ever had, right, physically. We then tackled our first Ironman together in 2011, and I beat my goal by 30 minutes. But even more impressive was watching Jody, with knee problems and shin splints and other issues, crush her Ironman in just over 13 hours. So I went from fat and lazy to finishing an Ironman in just a few years. And then I did another one the next year for good measure. Physical fitness can change your life. It can extend your life. It can also make you more productive and focused as you pursue wealth and independence in other areas of your life. Taking time to develop healthy habits is not a subtractor from other areas. It's a multiplier. It makes you more energized. It spurs creativity in your mind to perform at a higher level. And then, since our kids have been born, it has given us the energy we need to keep up with them, or to sometimes just perform triage when necessary. But it has also given us a lifestyle that we can share with our kids, and that encourages them to create a physical and a mental lifestyle that will serve them throughout their life. Health is important to us because it is so critical to our lifestyle, to our pursuit of financial freedom, to the life we want to build. and what we want our kids to learn from us. So, and that brings me to my biggest why, right? My biggest motivation for what it is we're doing here. And I mentioned it yesterday, and that is our kids. How many of us had heroes growing up that were public figures, right? Sports stars, actors, astronauts, maybe the Queen, right? Well, I don't want my kids to have to look elsewhere for their heroes. I heard a guy in our company at a conference once say, "Why should your kids want to put someone else's name on their back?" He said, "I want my kids to put their own name on their back and to be proud of that name." It's edmylett.com, by the way. Subscribe to his podcast. That stuff is gold. But yeah, I want my kids to proudly wear our name. I want them to want to put their parents' name on their back as their heroes. There have been many times in my 6+ years that I thought about quitting and getting a real job again, and not because I lost my passion for it, but because I thought it had gotten too hard. Maybe it wasn't for me. Maybe I wasn't cut out for it. But on those there were a couple occasions specifically where the only thing that made me get back up the next morning and get back out to work and get back to doing what I had to do was the thought that I didn't want to have to tell my kids someday that I quit on something I loved and something that I was passionate about and something that was going to be able to give them the future we dream about. So that in itself, because when things get hard for our kids, I can be heard telling them, hey, there's no such thing as can't. If you can't do it yourself, ask for help until you figure out how to do it yourself. We want our kids to learn grit. We want them to persevere, to be resilient. When everyone around them quits, when everyone around them would quit, I want them to keep going, right? I'm not ever going to stop 3 feet from gold, if you're familiar with that story. If for no other reason, then I wouldn't want them to. And I don't want them to have to look any further than their own parents for an example on how to handle life's hard situations. I'm going to steal something else from Ed Mylett again. And confession here, I'm not that creative. Most every anecdote I refer to has been said much more eloquently by someone else I've listened to or read. But something I want to keep in my head, we have one life on this earth, and it's a short one. How do I want to live that life? As an extra in someone else's movie, or as the main character in my own? And when my days on this earth are up, what will my kids say about me? What will my kids say they learned from me? Will they struggle to pick out the good times from a life that I lived going through the motions? Or will they speak of a life that inspired them and touched the lives of so many others? In 1st and 2nd Chronicles, God says, fight for the right things, the right way, and for the right motive. And all of life is an act of worship and an opportunity to serve and please God. Jesus spent his life serving others and healing lives. We all have an ability to do that in some small way. And that's what we're trying to do here in Northern Virginia and DC, with what you're watching now. So I look forward to sharing our journey with you, and I hope that some of you will share your journey with us, and maybe we can learn from each other and encourage each other. Check out the blog for further thoughts at www.MindBodySoulFinancial.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. And Northern Virginia, DC, enjoy the 70-degree weather tomorrow. Take care.